True Bigfoot Encounters. Cabin Terror, River Charge, and Ridge Watcher. Do you believe Bigfoot is only a shadow in the trees? A story whispered around campfires. Think again. Because across North America, there are reports that go far beyond shadows. In Canada's Skeena Mountains, a lone hunter spent 6 nights in a log cabin while something hammered the walls, rattled the door, and finally pressed its face to the window. 6 nights of fear that ended with him fleeing into the snow, never to return. In Washington state, 4 campers laughed around a summer fire until 2 giants stepped from the trees and stood side by side, silent, massive, illuminated by the flames. No sound, no movement, just 2 watchers in the dark. In Idaho, it was no longer just watching. 2 fishermen on the Clearwater River saw a towering figure wade through a raging current. And then it charged straight at them, footsteps like hammers, a roar that shook the valley. And in Oregon, a family camping at the base of a ridge discovered that all night they had been under silent surveillance. A massive figure stood above them on the hilltop, watching, waiting, moving only when the flashlight beam turned away. 4 encounters, 4 states, 4 different faces of the same mystery. Some call it guardian of the wilderness. Others say predator of the night. So the question is, what is Bigfoot, protector or predator? Before we begin, comment your city or country below, and when we finish, rate this story from 0 to 10. Chapter 1. 6 Nights in the Cabin. British Columbia, 2008. The cabin sat alone in the Skeena Mountains, no bigger than a schoolroom. Logs cut by hand fitted together rough and tight. A tin roof that clicked and shivered every time the wind cut across the valley. The forest pressed close. Spruce and fir climbed high into the night sky, their branches sagging under heavy snow like pale arms stretched downward. Inside there was no radio, no phone, no connection. Only the dim light of a kerosene lamp and the orange pulse of a cast-iron stove. A winter night there was not like any other place. It was silence so deep you began to hear your own body, the beat of your heart, the hiss of your own breath. Even the settling snow on the roof sounded like thunder. The hunter who stayed there had spent 30 years in the backcountry. He thought he knew what silence meant. But he was wrong. Night. November 11th. At 2:00 a.m. it came. Thud. The wall shook, the stovepipe rattled, and the lantern flickered violently. Shadows leapt across the cabin like ghosts startled from their graves. The hunter sat upright in his bunk rifle in his hands, though he could barely keep his grip steady. His pulse hammered so loud it drowned the silence. He stepped to the door, opened it. Outside the clearing was silver, the snow falling soft under the half-moon. Nothing moved. Not a branch. Not a bird. Only cold air slicing his face like glass. He waited. Nothing. Went back inside. 10 minutes later, another strike, this time against the back wall near the window, harder, deeper, the sound of wood groaning. He opened the door again. Silence. The clearing sat still, as if time had stopped. The first night Bigfoot often begins with a single knock, not enough to chase a man away, just enough to mark its presence. To say, I know you're here. Night 2, November 12th. The pounding came back. Louder, more deliberate. A pattern emerged. Whenever he stepped outside with the lantern, the forest fell silent. Whenever he shut the door, the pounding resumed, as though it was watching him, testing him. The air smelled different that night. Pine resin mixed with something else, musky, acrid, sour. A smell he had never known in all his years trapping. By morning, the logs bore fresh dents. Shallow, but unmistakable. This is a classic pattern in Canadian reports escalation night by night, as if the creature is probing its limits. Night 3, November 13th. The sound changed. A slow scrape along the logs, deliberate, as if something dragged a heavy branch or claw across the wall. The noise crawled up his spine, raising every hair. Then came the roof. Bam! 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 The tin shuddered with each impact. Dust fell from the rafters. A bucket tipped onto the floor. The door latch rattled, as if unseen hands were testing it. Through the curtain a shadow. Huge, gone in an instant, but tall, impossibly tall, moving with intent. That morning he found tracks, 16 to 17 inches long, strides nearly 6 feet apart, a straight line unlike a bear's shuffle. He tried to convince himself otherwise. But deep down, he knew night. 4 November 14th. The nightmare peaked. The pounding centered on the door, each strike so violent the rafters dropped dust like falling ash. The lamp flickered weakly, threatening to go out, and then a face at the window, 2 amber eyes, reflecting dull light, set far too high for any man to reach from the ground. A fog spread across the glass, breath, warm, sour, spreading into a greasy smear that ran in long streaks. The hunter froze. His hands shook so violently he could not raise his rifle. His entire body screamed to move, but he could not. And then, as suddenly as it came, it was gone. The shape melted into the forest. Heavy footsteps crunched in the snow until silence returned. By the 4th night, encounters often move from sound to direct contact. Window sightings are rare, but when they occur, they are unforgettable. This was no accident. It wanted him to see. Night 5. November 15th. The cabin became a drum. Bam, 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 walls, roof. Even the steps cracked under the blows. The strikes came in waves, sometimes minutes apart, sometimes rapid like war drums. He threw open the door. Nothing. The clearing lay still, frozen in moonlight, but the smell thick, musky animal hung in the air. By morning, the tin roof had been bent outward. A step had cracked. Bark scraped away. Night 6. November 16th. The pounding began early, 8:45. This time no circling, no games. 3 blows struck the door, shaking the latch to near breaking. The curtain ballooned inward as if breath pressed from outside. At 1 near a.m., a strike so violent split the beam beside his bed. That was the end. He stuffed his gear into a sack, sat waiting for the first gray light of dawn, then fled into the snow. He never returned. By the time spring came, the cabin had collapsed under heavy drifts. Only the foundation logs remained. Final analysis. British Columbia encounters are not fleeting. They are prolonged. 6 nights, each escalation measured, each step deliberate. This is not random animal behavior. It is patience, persistence, and perhaps something more unsettling intent. That is why the 2008 Skeena Mountains case remains one of the most chilling in Canadian history, a textbook example of Bigfoot's ability to terrorize without ever needing to break down the door. Chapter 2. 2 Giants by the Fire, Washington, 2016. The campsite lay high on a mountain shelf in Okanagan country, just a patch of flat ground by a stream hemmed in on all sides by towering pines. By nightfall, the air had cooled and the forest settled into silence except for the chatter of 4 friends, 2 men, 2 women in their early 30s. They had hiked all afternoon and now sat in folding chairs around a fire, the crackle of pine logs and the smell of resin sweet in the air. It felt safe. It felt ordinary. But in wilderness, ordinary never lasts. 10:30 p.m. One of them stopped mid-laugh, his head tilted, eyes fixed beyond the fire. His voice dropped to a whisper. "Do you see that?" At the tree line, 2 faint orbs, amber glinting, reflecting the firelight. Not lanterns, not deer. They were too high, too steady. The others turned their flashlights. White beams sliced into the trees and the eyes were gone, as if they had never been there. The forest swallowed all. A nervous laugh broke the tension. Someone said, "Must have been an animal." But in the quiet, each of them knew they had never seen an animal's eyes that high. 11 p.m. The first step came from the south. Crunch, then another. Dry leaves snapped underfoot, heavy, measured, upright. The 4 froze, listening. The steps were deliberate, not the skitter of deer, not the padding of a cougar. 2 legs, slow, intentional. And then from the east, another set of eyes. 2 watchers now, on opposite sides. The fire popped. Sparks drifted upward into the black sky. But no one laughed anymore. Their breath clouded white hearts hammering. Even the insects had stopped. The night was holding its breath. In many encounters, the first sign is silence, when even crickets vanish, replaced by an unnatural stillness. To seasoned researchers, it's the oldest warning sign something big is near. 11:20 p.m. One of the men tossed more wood onto the fire. Flames leapt higher, spreading light deeper into the tree line. And then the forest moved. Two figures stepped from the shadows. They were enormous, at least 9 feet tall, shoulders wide enough to fill a doorway. Their arms hung unnaturally long fingertips near their knees. Hair dark as midnight covered their bodies, but the firelight caught strands that shimmered red like embers, glowing faintly on their coats. The four friends froze in their seats. No one screamed. No one spoke. The only sounds were the wood crackling and the wild rhythm of hearts pounding against ribs. The giants did not growl, did not roar. They simply stood side by side at the edge of firelight 30 yards away, watching, silent, unmoving. One of the women, her hand shaking, raised a flashlight. The beam cut across the clearing and struck their faces. Amber eyes flared bright. One of the creatures flinched, raising a massive arm to shield its face, a reflex unmistakably human. The other remained still, unblinking, a stone sentinel. Seconds stretched. The fire hissed, sparks falling to the dirt. Time itself seemed to halt. And then, as if they had made their point, both figures began to step back, slowly, one step, then another, until their massive bodies melted into the black wall of forest. Morning. When dawn came, the forest felt changed. The ground around camp was marked. Deep impressions 16 to 18 inches long pressed into the soil, spaced nearly 6 feet apart. Branches were snapped, chest-high bark twisted where something immense had brushed past. Even the grass was flattened into a faint trail leading into the timber. The group walked that trail only a few yards before stopping. No one wanted to follow it further. Analysis. This case stands apart from most North American reports for one simple reason: two giants together. Researchers call it parallel observation. Almost all sightings involve a single figure, fleeting and distant. But here two emerged together, stood silently, and revealed themselves under firelight. It suggests something few want to consider, that Bigfoot may not be solitary at all, that they move at times in pairs or even small family groups. And if two stood visible side by side, how many more watched unseen, hidden in the dark, beyond the tree line? Chapter 3. The River Crossing and the Charge. Clearwater River, 2014. The Clearwater River at night is not a place for the faint of heart. 70 yards across, black water moves with a steady, relentless pull. The gravel banks smell of wet stone fish and lantern smoke. Two middle-aged fishermen stood there that night, lines in the water waiting for steelhead. Their lantern hissed faintly beside them, casting a soft yellow glow that touched only a circle of stones. The world beyond was silence. No wind, no crickets, just the endless whisper of the river. 8:10 p.m. One of the men stiffened his rod, pausing mid-cast. "Wait. You hear that thud?" Thud. 2 steps. Heavy. Measured. Coming from the far bank. The second man frowned, cocking his head. It wasn't a bear's shuffle. It wasn't a deer's quick trot. This was upright, deliberate. And then from the shadows a figure emerged, dark, towering, shoulders squared, the head slightly pitched forward, arms long and heavy at its sides. Even across 70 yards of black water, its bulk was undeniable. The fishermen froze, their breathing shallow, almost drowned by the river's current. Then came the sound that would haunt them forever, a deep guttural exhale. Long, low, like a growl smothered under its own chest. The sound vibrated across the water, pressing against their ribs. The descent. The creature stepped forward and into the river. Water exploded around its legs, white foam spraying under the pale crescent moon. The current was brutal, strong enough to drag a man off his feet in seconds. But not this thing. Each stride cut the river in half. The water surged against it, but it plowed forward, steady, unstoppable. The splashing grew louder, echoing between the canyon walls. The fishermen could see droplets flying from its chest, could hear the slap of water against muscle. With every step, it came closer and closer. Their courage snapped. They dropped their rods, their cooler, everything. Panic hit like a lightning bolt. The charge. The beast climbed the far edge of the gravel bar and stopped. For one moment it stood under the moonlight chest, heaving water streaming down its frame. And then it ran. Boom! 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 The ground shook. Stones sprayed like shrapnel. Each footfall landed like a hammer on steel. The air filled with its guttural bursts, half breath, half roar. The two men bolted, one stumbled skin tearing against the sharp gravel, but adrenaline shoved him back to his feet. Their lantern toppled, light spinning wildly across the rocks before sputtering out. Behind them the thunder of pursuit, the rhythm of giant feet closing distance. Hot breath or maybe imagination scorched the back of their necks. Every second stretched like eternity. Their legs screamed, their chests burned. But still they ran up the slope toward the truck, waiting beyond the trees. 15 meters one dared to look back. The creature had stopped. It stood at the edge of the gravel bar 15 meters away, chest rising and falling like a bellows. Its eyes glowed faint amber in the half-light fixed on the fleeing men. And then it unleashed a roar, a sound so deep it seemed to shake the river itself, rolling up the hillside like thunder trapped in a canyon. The men didn't stop to see more. They slammed into the truck, started the engine with shaking hands, and tore down the dirt road, hearts pounding louder than the tires on gravel. The aftermath. The next morning, daylight revealed the truth. On the gravel bar, massive impressions 16 to 17 inches long, spaced 5 feet apart, deep enough to show toe shapes. Their cooler lay overturned latch, broken contents scattered. Fish bait sandwiches, dirt smears all tossed about. The musky, pungent odor still clung to the air hanging above the stones, like smoke after a fire. One of the fishermen muttered, voice trembling, "It wasn't just watching. It wanted us gone." Analysis. Most Bigfoot reports stop at glimpses, a shadow, a sound, glowing eyes, but the Clearwater encounter went further. This was not passive, not curious. This was territorial aggression. It crossed a freezing river at night, closed the distance with deliberate force, and charged 2 humans until they fled. Researchers mark this case as one of the most dangerous encounters in the Pacific Northwest. It raises questions that chill the blood. Does Bigfoot simply warn intruders away? Or on nights like Clearwater, does it truly hunt? Chapter 4. The Ridge Watcher, Oregon, 2016. The campsite looked ordinary enough. A flat clearing packed dirt from an old logging landing. To the north, a hill rising 100 feet covered in Douglas fir and alder. To the south, nothing but quiet woods. A small fire crackled. Smoke drifted lazily through the late summer night air. The parents sipped from enamel mugs. Their children 8 and 11 played near the trailer, laughing gathering sticks. Everything about the evening felt safe, familiar, until it didn't. 9:00 p.m. The chorus of insects stopped. One moment the forest hummed with life, the next silence. The father froze cup halfway to his lips. His wife noticed too. The sudden quiet pressed down on them, heavy and unnatural. Then, from the ridge above, a low thump. Not a crash, not a branch falling. A step. The man grabbed his flashlight beam, cutting through the darkness, and that's when his heart sank. The shape on the hill. At the crest of the hill, outlined against the starry sky, stood a figure. Massive, upright, shoulders impossibly broad. Its head rose above the younger trees, a faint point at the crown. The arms hung low, almost to the knees. It didn't move. It didn't roar. It just watched. The moonlight brushed its edges silver across a thick, shaggy coat. For a full half-minute the family sat frozen, barely breathing. The children still near the trailer hadn't noticed. But the parents, they couldn't look away. Then it exhaled. A long, heavy breath that rolled down the slope like fog. Low, resonant, so deep they felt it in their bones. The mother's whisper cracked. "Turn it off. Don't let it see the light." The father clicked the flashlight off. Darkness swallowed them. Only the faint glow of the dying fire remained. The waiting for minutes that stretched like hours, the figure didn't move. It just stood looming against the night, silent and still. The parents could hear their own heartbeats, could hear the wood pop in the fire, but above them the giant figure remained motionless, watching. Then a shift. It crouched, slowly, deliberately lowering its bulk closer to the tree line. For a moment it vanished behind the ridge, then footsteps crunch, 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 moving sideways, parallel to the camp. Branches snapped, dry twigs cracked, then nothing. Silence again. The family retreat. The mother pulled her children inside the trailer. The father doused the fire with a trembling hand. They sat together in the dark, listening. Every creak of the trailer frame, every gust of night wind, their nerves strung tighter with each passing second. Just after midnight, another sound, a branch breaking high on the hill, then quiet again, as though the watcher was reminding them it was still there. They didn't sleep. Not really. They just waited for dawn. Morning evidence. At first light, the father climbed partway up the slope. His boots sank into flattened patches of grass, wide, dry impressions left where something massive had stood. Each step was 5 feet apart, clear despite the rocky soil. Nearby, a branch as thick as his wrist lay freshly twisted splinters, jutting like torn sinew. He picked it up, examining the fibers. This wasn't a clean break. It had been wrenched, and from that vantage point, standing where the creature had stood, he could see everything: the trailer, the fire pit, the clearing. The realization struck like ice water. Their entire night had been watched from above. Analysis. In Oregon, reports often describe this same behavior. Bigfoot doesn't charge, doesn't roar. Instead, it chooses the high ground. It watches, patient, silent, calculating. Unlike the violent aggression of Idaho, the Ridge Watcher is a predator of silence, controlling the scene unseen until it decides otherwise. It's not just strength that terrifies, it's strategy. 6 nights of pounding in a Canadian cabin, 2 giants stepping into firelight in Washington, a river-crossing charge in Idaho, and a silent watcher in Oregon. Each story adds another brushstroke to the same picture. Bigfoot is not myth. It is presence. And its behavior shifts with the land it rules: persistent, social, aggressive, or eerily patient. So I'll ask you this. If you were camping tonight and saw a figure on the ridge, unmoving, watching, would you keep the fire lit? Or would you douse the flame and pray it walks away? Comment below where you're watching from. Rate this story from 0 to 10. And subscribe, because next time we ask: Bigfoot, guardian, or predator?